When you see those news headlines, maybe about some big company getting fined for, like, messing with the markets.
Yeah, or you hear about insider trading.
Exactly. And you start wondering, okay, what's actually in place to stop the whole financial system from just, going completely off the rails?
Absolutely. And that really brings us to our topic today, trade surveillance.
Trade surveillance.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds pretty technical. Can you break that down, like, in plain terms? What are we talking about?
Think of it as the market's watchdog, really. It's the whole process of monitoring all the trading
I
activity.
love it.
Well, as much as possible, yeah. Looking for anything unusual, anything that might suggest manipulation or illegal stuff. It's all about keeping things fair and preventing abuse.
Got it. So, like a detective agency for the stock market, trying to spot the bad guys
Mm,
before they do too much damage.
That's a good way to put it.
So, our mission today is to really dig into how this works, understand the nuts and bolts of keeping the financial world, well, hopefully honest.
Yeah.
We've got some sources here that look at trade surveillance itself and also financial crime intelligence more broadly. So hopefully we can get a really good handle on the how and the why of it all.
Exactly. And our sources explain that trade surveillance basically relies on technology and data analysis. It's looking for those weird trading patterns.
Patterns that signal something's wrong.
Precisely. Things like insider trading, market manipulation, other illegal activities. It's about sifting through just massive amounts of trading data that flows through every single day.
Okay, give me some concrete examples. What kind of specific rule breaking are these systems actually designed to catch?
Well, the sources point out a few key ones. You've got insider trading, obviously someone trading based on secret info.
The classic one,
Right. Then there's spoofing. That's where traders place orders they don't actually intend to fill.
just to create a false impression.
Exactly. Misleading supplier demand. Layering is kind of similar, placing multiple non-genuine orders at different prices to push the market.
Ah, okay.
And then wash trades. That's basically trading with yourself to create fake volume.
So it looks like there's lots of activity, but there isn't really.
You got it. And trade surveillance has to spot these kinds of things across all sorts of assets, stocks, bonds, derivatives, you name it.
Derivatives, those complex contracts.
Yeah, and across all the different places where trading happens, the various exchanges and platforms.
Right, okay. So it's not just the big, obvious fraud, but these, like, sneakier ways people try to game the system. Why is this constant watching so critical?
Well, think about today's markets. They're incredibly fast, totally global, interconnected.
Yeah, things happen in milliseconds.
Exactly. So trust and integrity are just paramount. If investors start thinking the markets aren't fair, they pull back.
Right, they won't invest.
And that's bad news for everyone. It can really damage the whole financial
So
system.
it undermines the fundamental trust.
Precisely. Trade surveillance is absolutely vital for building and, crucially, maintaining that investor confidence. It also protects firms and the market as a whole from huge financial losses and reputational damage.
And I assume regulators are involved here.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just a nice to have. Regulatory bodies all over the world, the SEC and FINRA in the US.
Securities and Exchange Commission, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority.
Right. And ESMA in Europe, the FCA in the UK, they all require firms to have really strong, rigorous trade surveillance programs. It's mandated.
Okay, so how on earth do they actually do it? I mean, you
Yeah.
said vast amounts of data. It sounds like finding a needle in a haystack or maybe a specific grain of sand on a beach.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. And that's where modern tech really comes into play.
The technology angle.
Definitely. Today's trade surveillance leans heavily on things like artificial intelligence, AI machine learning, or ML, and something called behavioral analytics.
Behavioral analytics, what's that?
Yeah. It's about looking at patterns, not just in trades, but sometimes even communications data, to spot when someone's acting differently from their usual behavior or outside normal market patterns.
Interesting. So the computers are doing the heavy lifting.
They have to.
Yeah.
These systems can process just enormous volumes of trading data, basically in real time, way more than humans ever could manually.
So the AI and machine learning, they learn what normal looks like and then flag anything that seems off. Is that the basic idea?
That's pretty much it. They can pick up on really subtle patterns that might hint at suspicious activity, things a human analyst might easily miss.
And presumably, they get better over time.
Yes, that's the machine learning aspect. And crucially, these advanced systems help cut down on false positives.
The alerts that turn out to be nothing.
Exactly, which saves analysts a lot of time chasing shadows. Plus, the people trying to manipulate markets are always coming up with new tricks, right?
Always evolving.
So these AI and ML tools need to adapt too. They help detect newer threats like sophisticated ways of abusing algorithmic trading or manipulation that stretches across different markets.
Makes sense. It really is that constant cat and mouse game you hear about.
It absolutely is.
So if a firm wants to have a really effective system, what are the key ingredients? What makes a surveillance setup actually work well?
Well, our sources highlight a few essentials. First, you need customizable alerts,
Meaning,
meaning the system has to be flexible. You need to be able to tailor the alerts based on the specific asset being traded or the specific type of risky behavior you're looking for in that market. What's suspicious for stocks might be normal for, say, futures.
okay, adaptability. What else?
Being able to analyze historical data is critical, and you need a rock-solid audit trail.
Audit trail, like a record of everything.
Exactly. If something looks fishy today, investigators need to easily go back in time, see the whole sequence of trades, communications, everything that led up to it.
Right, trace it back. Makes sense for investigations.
Definitely. And then managing all these alerts and the investigations that follow, that requires integration with case management platforms.
So tools to help the compliance teams organize their work.
Precisely. Streamline the whole workflow. And finally, automated reporting is pretty important too, especially for showing those regulators you're doing your job.
It sounds like a very complex, very interconnected machine.
But does trade surveillance operate in a silo? Or is it connected to other things a bank or firm does?
Oh, it's definitely not isolated. The sources really stress this point. Effective trade surveillance is usually integrated into much broader programs for tackling financial crime.
Like what?
Think about anti-money laundering efforts, AML, or know your customer KYC rules, general fraud detection too.
So AML, KYC, fraud, trade surveillance. They all talk to each other.
Ideally, yes, that's the goal. A unified approach gives a much more complete view of potential risks.
Seeing the bigger picture. Exactly. By connecting the dots between, say, someone's trading activity and maybe some flags raised during the KYC process, firms can get a better sense of who they're dealing with and spot potential problems much earlier. It allows for more proactive risk management.
And those features you mentioned, like the audit trail and case management, presumably they help make those connections.
Precisely. They provide the infrastructure needed to link trade surveillance findings with these broader compliance efforts.
Okay, looking ahead then, this field feels like it must be changing constantly. What's the future look like for trade surveillance?
Well, with markets getting even more complex, more digital,
More crypto, more high-frequency trading.
all of it. The need for even smarter, more adaptable, scalable trade surveillance solutions is just going to keep growing. Firms basically have no choice but to continuously invest in upgrading their systems.
To keep up with the criminals and the regulators.
Exactly. Staying ahead of new risks, keeping compliant in what's likely to stay a very heavily regulated space, it's a huge ongoing challenge. And things like effective cross-market surveillance, spotting manipulation that jumps between asset types or venues, that's a big focus.
Right, because the bad actors don't stick to one playground.
No, they don't. And there's also constant work refining the AI algorithms, trying to make them even better at detection while, again, minimizing those annoying false positives.
Okay. Our sources also mentioned a few sort of current trends in the wider financial crime world. We don't have time to dive super deep, but maybe you could quickly touch on how trade surveillance might link to these. Like they mentioned info stealer malware.
Sure. Well, an info stealer malware, that's stuff designed to steal login details, passwords.
Nasty stuff.
Yeah. If criminals get hold of someone's trading account password through malware, they could potentially log in and place fraudulent or manipulative trades. So it shows how vital cybersecurity is and how it connects directly to the risks trade surveillance is trying to manage. It's all part of the same security puzzle.
Okay. And what about AI being used in financial crime programs?
Right. The sources mention AI rewiring these programs. That just underlines how central these technologies, AI, ML, are becoming. They're crucial defense tools for surveillance, but firms also need to be aware that, criminals might try to leverage AI themselves.
Using AI for bad.
Potentially, yeah. And then things like sophisticated phone scams or social media fraud, like Facebook fraud was mentioned. While maybe not directly market trading, they show the broader landscape.
A sheer variety of financial crime out there.
Exactly. And robust surveillance, whether it's in trading or transaction monitoring or elsewhere, is all part of the effort to combat this wider threat landscape. These examples just illustrate that trade surveillance is one critical piece in a much larger fight to protect financial integrity.
Okay, so bringing this all home,
Yeah.
it sounds like trade surveillance is way more than just like passively watching screens. It's this really active, complex, constantly evolving system. And it seems absolutely essential for keeping our financial markets fair, transparent, and, hopefully less prone to those big scandals that really shake people's trust.
That sums it up perfectly. Hopefully, you listening now have a much clearer picture of what trade surveillance actually involves, why it's so incredibly important in today's world, and the kind of sophisticated tech that makes it all possible.
Yeah, so maybe the next time you see one of those financial crime stories, you'll have a better sense of the complex systems working or trying to work behind the scenes. And here's a thought to leave you with. As our world gets more and more digital in every area, how does that constant change create not just new challenges for financial security, but also drive the innovation needed to protect our systems?
Something to chew on, for sure.